Hey guys, Stable here. Today I got to look at the Indianapolis for you. It's a black version, the Black Friday version. There's the build I run on my American heavy cruisers. I get a lot of requests over time. They give the Indianapolis away a lot, um, for whatever reason. We can speculate about that on our own. But, I'd consider this one of the harder ships to play, one of the harder cruisers to play in the game. It's very incapable of protecting itself from incoming fire. It's one of the more fun ships to shoot at. But here I got this little opening sequence here. These are the type of plays that you really want to be trying to make. I wanted to throw this clip in there to start it off because these are kind of game-changing plays. I consider a lot of these American cruisers, some of these radar cruisers, they're not necessarily there to be doing top damage every game, and maybe you're not going to be getting the highest scores on your team every game with this ship, but you can occasionally make these game-changing plays here, especially if you're using the radar properly. Here I'm attempting to radar the Venom. He's behind that island though. But as we're backing up here, getting into position, just in case he goes around one end or the other, Yudachi pops up. Now Yudachi, he's trying to disengage. He's popping his smoke. He's going to slow down, probably launch some torps, no doubt. You can see we have the sonar active. As soon as he disappears, though, we want to get as deep into our reload as possible since we did shoot him. But as soon as we're getting deep into the reload, or I suspect my teammates are going to be up on their reloads because we do have some support here, we go ahead and pop the radar, and the combined fire of the blue team takes them down. Now, my rule of thumb is in a radar cruiser, when you pop that radar, you need to kind of trade one radar for one enemy cruiser. That's how valuable that consumable is. I always consider it kind of a failure if you use the radar and you don't get a destroyer kill out of it, or at least a heavily damaged destroyer that's going to be reticent about making aggressive plays for the rest of the game. But note the position here, we're using islands, and as soon as we kill that, we move back into an aggressive position here, trying to support this flank. Red's moving hard into A. But we have the Cleveland sitting there broadside. Now we're going to be demonstrating in this little sequence here the power of this AP, especially against cruisers, but effective against broadside battleships as well. You can't sleep on these Indianapolises when they're shooting at you. You definitely don't want to be exposing your side like this Cleveland is. You can see here we're going to actually tear this guy to shreds. And this is kind of the radar and the guns are the only redeeming features of the ship. Like, everything else about it is really hard, in my opinion at least. I've talked to some really good players whose opinions I trust, and they absolutely love the ship. I don't hate it. Maybe I am a little hard on it when I talk about it in general, but I don't hate it. It's just kind of unnecessarily hard, in my opinion. Anyway, here we got a full game, and this one is not going to be a barn burner in terms of damage, but I think we're going to get decent damage. But we're going to... I chose this clip to demonstrate how carefully you have to really play the ship. And this is kind of a good rule of thumb for a lot of gameplay in general. We're going to be talking about concepts that apply in general. Namely, can I take on this fight? And if not, what is the reaction to that? And that's kind of something that I've been trying to cover a little bit and need to continue to cover because it's kind of more of a intermediate/advanced type concept. But if you read comments on my videos on the internet or based on the questions I get, a lot of people, when you get into these situations where you can't win whatever you're doing, how do we respond to that is a problem that everyone has. And it's kind of a difficult play to make because, this isn't Call of Duty where you can kill a guy in 2 seconds no matter who it is. You got to understand, sometimes you can do things, sometimes you can't. Like right now, I can't get shot by that Leon, assuming he's got AP. I think he's going to blast us. Nope, he missed a little long there. Nope. There's the HE salvo. AP from whatever that, the Bismarck. We don't want to get shot by that. Note I made an extremely aggressive play here. I went for this middle island right off the bat, hoping to get in this position where we can attack the Fletcher. We knew, based on the, what was happening, that there was probably a destroyer over here. Got over here. Now we're protecting ourselves from those two battleships that wanted to shoot at us. Now we have them in radar range. Unfortunately, we're not getting the supporting fire on this guy. But this is what I'm talking about. Even if this isn't necessarily a kill, which is definitely what you want, Look at the guy's health. He's down under half his health, and he's going to be shooed out of the area for a long time. I can't remember. I don't think we see that guy until later in the game. Not as good as a kill, obviously. We want to get that destroyer out of there. As long as he's got life in his blood, he can kind of spot and cause mischief. No doubt about it. But acceptable result. You know, had our team chimed in, I think we probably would have gotten him. Anyways, now we're in a bit of a pickle here. I'm going to tell this guy to get on A. You can see he's sitting on the Sol side. And that's kind of the consequence of that play. By knocking that Fletcher around like that, even if he comes back in here, and it doesn't really matter what destroyer we have, you know, he's got me supporting him. But even 1v1, you know, let's say we're not in the equation anymore, because we wounded the Fletcher so much, he should be able to 1v1 that destroyer, whoever we got on our team. So, good play by finally getting on the cap. We can expect the Fletcher probably not to aggressively attack. Here we overshoot. Obviously, we don't want to be exposed basically broadside to a Leon, who, once again, if he ever loads AP, could easily one-shot us. But if he wants to keep shooting this HE, it can hurt us a little bit. But, you know, we'll take these HE salvos from him all day. Because, again, you know, if that guy's shooting AP, he can easily one-shot us. I played 5 games just refamiliarizing myself with the ship and shooting footage for this video. And I got dev struck once, which it happens. It happens to everyone, but I don't get dev struck 20% of the time usually. Anyways, I'm not going to get too into the armor schemes. Like my earlier coverage of the Indianapolis, if you go back and watch that, I'm explaining the cutaway section in there where there's a lot of flat sides to shoot, so they can get very strong penetrations. Very easy ship to Citadel, you know, raise Citadel. Armor schemes, we'll find out next update exactly what we're dealing with, but as far as I can tell, it's basically unarmored. So, you know, it's a very hard ship, and the maneuverability. When I got dev struck earlier tonight, it's basically when I was playing a position like this, but then I got flushed out of there. And once you get in these open water situations, you know, you probably got prop mod on this thing. Island hugger type of cruisers tend to do better with the prop mod, and trying to dodge open water scenarios. Even with Macau on this build, you know, I'm trying to get out of their detectability range. It's just not going to work. So there's certain maps where the ship does better than others. If you can get into these covered fire positions like we are right here, we're just basically backing up a little bit, just a smidge every time he creeps forward just a bit, and we're just keeping that little ridge between us and the Leon. But you can see as this fight develops, our destroyer is just kind of sitting on A. He's probably trying to torp these guys long range. He should really be getting on B right now or hunting the destroyer, trying to torp those battleships back there. Not profitable. But now we check him and we see he's about to die, and now I'm like, okay. You know, presumably all those ships to the north, if I'm them, I aggressively rush the piss out of this Indianapolis, because this thing cannot defend itself whatsoever. No torpedoes, no armor. You know, those battleships come in full speed, I'm toast. So immediately I recognize I probably should have checked that Bismarck's health earlier. You got to be aware of, you know, the health pools on both sides of an engagement that you're involved in. So that was a mistake, but we noticed it, and that time that before he died, you know, in between when we noticed and when he died, that gives us enough time to plan. Now we're going from island to island, and it's just going to be, you know, we need to get away from these ships. We cannot be close to these battleships whatsoever. Their accuracy goes up. They're just going to wreck us. So here's the problem. This is what I was alluding to earlier. You know, the mentality at this point in time might be, okay, my team over here, we lost the side very quickly. I mean, yes, the destroyer is still alive, but you can see he's trying to torp battleships that are sailing away from him. So we can basically say he's not over here either. We're functionally by ourselves, you know. So I have two options. I can pull, you know, around that island, try and 1v3 those battleships, which will last about 13 seconds at most, if I'm lucky. So, in other words, that play is possible, technically, but it's not possible, if you understand what I'm saying. I can't do that, okay? So I'm not going to force that play. What I can possibly do is hopefully keep that island between me and the leftmost battleship, which was the only one that was pushing my blue detection ring. Hope and keep my fingers crossed that the destroyer that we chased off earlier isn't coming back around to spot / capture A, because if he spots us, we're going to have a hard time getting out of that position. Then we can use these islands and our destroyer, who is providing good vision by being in his position currently. You know, we can use the island as protection and then use the spotting to allow us to be, you know, offensive in this position. We can shoot at these ships once they're clear, obviously, but because they're being spotted, we can fire at them for free. But we're going to continue to move away from here, and you're going to notice I want to keep these guys towards my max firing range as much as possible. I'm doing that for two reasons. Number one, self-preservation, because once again, the battleships become less accurate at range. We have a little bit more time to dodge, and the cruisers generally do better against battleships at range to begin with. So that's the selfish portion of it. The team portion of it is we're giving our team, who was heavily overloaded on C previously, time to move into B. You know, we controlled 2 casts, but we should lose A if those guys ever decide to push. It's kind of aggravating just watching how passive they are. When you have those advantages push in, yeah, they're a little bit afraid of that destroyer perhaps, but 3 of them basically could have wrecked both of us very quickly, and they might have had a much better chance in this game. But we're giving those guys that were on the east time to move into position to, number one, support us, number two, attract fire from us, because we don't want to be focused by these guys, and we don't want to be taking sustained damage from them over time or incoming fire from them over time. That's not what the Indianapolis does. You got to be firing from basically protected positions, or if you're forced to be firing when you're spotted, you cannot be the ship that they're noticing and they're shooting at. So if you have teammates that are closer to the enemies that you're engaging than you are, most players focus on the ships that are closer to them. They're zoomed down the telescope the entire game. They probably won't even notice you until you really start to cause a lot of problems. And at this stage in the game, you can look at the score and be like, okay, 50,000, not great. I mean, that's 1 2/3 times our ship's HP, so it's not horrible. It's not like we're really costing our team by being out there. But because we've had to focus on the preservation, and because we've had to keep multiple islands, preferably between us and the people that were in position to at least chase us down, that's slowing down how often we're able to pull the trigger. Getting a little tempted to blast that guy just because he's so far back, but he's doing all right. He's doing a pretty good job spotting. I just got a little frustrated when we were playing. But, you know, that kind of stuff, the preservation can cut down the damage, but you can always say you can get into better positions, or, you know, I can always improve as I'm watching this. But the point I'm trying to make with the ship is, if you're inclined to sail at these type of battleships, and even 1v1, you know, if it's one Indianapolis versus one battleship, you'll lose that 98 out of 100 times, and the 2 times you do win, you should feel bad about it. You know, you're playing someone who doesn't know what they're doing. The ship is just not built that way, you know, so you've really got to be focusing on preservation. Here, notice that destroyer did lay down the smoke. Now I zoomed in on him, I believe he's a Venom, so we should expect about 2 minutes of coverage here. So as long as these guys stay in the max firing range, the white ring on the map, you know, we'll be able to get a little bit more damage. And this is all the damage we've gotten since we bailed from behind that island. That's damage, that's scoring that, you know, we've kind of earned by recognizing, okay, I can't take this situation. I can't take a 1v3 battleship situation, even with that destroyer over there. You know, we can call it a 2v3. I can't do that. I need to get out of there. And since we've stayed alive, we've gone from 35k to whatever we end up with. You know, we've gotten 40,000 more damage since then, and we probably will get a little bit more by the end of the game. But, you know, that willingness to disengage when the situation is unwinnable, that's something I continue to have to work on, because I'm an extremely aggressive video game player by nature. I've been playing shooters for 20 years roughly, and you know, it's just kind of in my DNA to be really aggressive. But this type of game, you cannot, I don't care if you're Superman and Batman's love child, or I don't care who the hell you are, you can't win 1v3s against battleships in any cruiser, really, not in a straight up, you know, I'm charging at them type of a brawling situation. The game is very much designed rock, paper, scissors. We've been talking about this, myself and everyone that covers the game since the game came out. Cruisers cannot do that. Battleships are born to wreck your face, okay? Destroyers, you cannot rush cruisers. I see it all the time. Cruisers are there to destroy your life, So rather than trying to force these situations where the game is designed to ensure that you lose those situations that you can't possibly take, understand, okay, this isn't winnable. We're going to disengage. We're going to try and stay alive, and then we're going to try and stay relevant and in positions where we can continue to deal damage. And you can see there we've added an extra 50k from that initial disengage point. So hopefully, that was a good example for you guys to how you should be thinking about those mismatched situations, unwinnable situations. Anyways, if you like that one, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Lots of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave below. Love to hear from you guys, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.